Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. My name is Alan Gigax, and I'm excited to have a return guest, C. Moline. Let's get right to it. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. My name is Moline. I'm a letter carrier out of Seattle, Washington. I'm going to be a steward next year. I was a steward last year, but I skipped this year. And I'm the financial secretary for my branch.
Right on, which is Branch 79, right?
Branch
Oh,
79, Seattle.
nice. Good deal. And I, is this your third time on the show? I'm not sure. It's at least your second. I know you've been on before. I think it's the third. I don't know.
I think it is my third,
Yeah.
yeah.
Either way, it's fantastic having you on because the reason I like to have you on the show is because you are a labor organizer. You know, it's more than just being a member of a union. Like you understand on a much deeper level than I do what makes unions tick and what a union's function is. And so you said something, I called you recently just to kind of check in, like, hey, I haven't heard from C. Moline in a while, and there's always great insights. And you said something to me that really stuck with me, and it was this quote, "You can't tear down the master's house with the master's tools." And this was said in reference to our grievance process. And can you give a little background on what that quote means? Like, obviously, it's a reference to slavery. In this case, it would be like wage slavery. But give a little background on that, what that means in the labor movement.
So this is an Audre Lorde quote. I actually pulled up the full quote from that
Ah, sweet.
paragraph. Um, For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. And
Dude.
this fact is only threatening to those people who still define the master's house as their only source of support.
Oh, that's so good. Wow.
So
What's
it's an
the name of
Audre
the
Lorde.
book? Audre Lorde.
It's
Or
I think it is literally for the master's tools will never dismantle the
okay.
master's house.
Wow.
It's a it's like a 4-page article that she
Okay.
wrote. Um, and it's really about like she's going to this conference and she's mad about how it was organized in such a way that even though it's a feminist conference, it completely sidelined all the black women and lesbians. And she's like, you're using the same like patriarchy
Right.
and white supremacy that is, disempowering all of us. But, she really hit something real there, which is like, what are the master's tools in our workplace, right? If we, think about us, the union, our union, as a vehicle for change, for like a change in the dynamics in the workplace, right? Like, we want to have a workplace where we're paid correctly, where we're respected, and where we have a safe, day-to-day work experience, right? If that's
Yep.
where we want to be, how do we get there? And the reality is, I keep watching the grievance process fail that,
Right.
right?
It's not affecting the change that we want it to affect.
And it's not able to progress past even what we imagined 3 years ago, right? We're like constantly like lowering our standards to what we're willing to accept. And I don't know how to say, like, how do we get to the point where we're not just like the trucks run well,
Mhm.
but that they're like exceedingly safe?
Sure.
Not just that we have the pushers in the hamper, but in fact we have, a situation in which that's not even necessary. Like we have the ability to, carry these larger packages with a helper always,
Right.
The
Right.
craziest thing is you bring the package into the truck with a helper and then you take it out without a helper,
That is true. Just today, I
right?
had an actual 70 pound. It was 68.7 pounds that I had to try to take to the door. And thank God I can still do it. But it was really tough.
And it's not good on our bodies, right? And
No,
so when
it
we
is
think
not.
about like why are we still in this situation where like that's beyond the horizon of possibilities currently.
Right.
Because in the horizon of possibilities it's just like, I should have the right to ask for someone to help me get it into the hamper.
Right. So
We
to
can't
get
even imagine that, you know?
Yeah, it's true. To get help on the street. I mean, I talk about that in the academy or in some of my training episodes that you need to ask the customer to help you carry this stuff. And that's a shitty position to be in. So to get,
Yeah, and
go ahead.
yeah. And most of the time the customers aren't going to be there. That's the other
That
thing.
one-
It's like
that's true.
you're delivering to the day. They're gone.
Dude,
Yeah.
I had to leave notice on the set. So I'm going to digress for a sec because
Yes.
this 70-pound package, it was going to a house where the people are almost always home, but it was a signature confirmation. So I'm like, dude, I really don't want to carry this more than once, but I do.
Yeah.
I take it out, I lug it up to the door, and I see people in the house. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Knock, knock, knock. Those motherfuckers never answered the door. I knocked probably 5 times, loud as shit, with the scanner, and they never come to the door. And so it might have been like their housekeeper, and I deliver to a rich neighborhood. And so, fuck. So I fill out the 3849. I leave it. This morning, I get to my case, and there's a redelivery notice.
Redelivery.
Yeah.
Of course.
And okay, they want me to bring it out. Well, that's fine. At least they know I'm coming this time. I'm going to bring it out again. So I go, the clerks never moved it from the left notice hamper that we drop stuff off at the end of the day. So I go pull it out of there, put it into my hamper, put it into my truck, go back to the people's house, nobody home. Those bastards.
Yeah, yeah, that's where it is.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I guess just to pull it back,
Yes, please. That's what I was about to do as well. Yeah.
there's I don't want to, and it's going to be very, maybe down on the grievance process, this conversation, but I do think we need to have an open conversation about it. I don't want it to seem like I think you shouldn't file grievances.
Right.
Obviously, I've been a steward. I filed, more than 100 grievances in my career, maybe closer to 200, right? But we can't keep expecting for things to change by just doing the same thing.
Right. So I want to get back to even more basic, what you kind of started with, which is what we're looking for from our labor union in general, which is like fair day's work for a fair day's pay, reasonable treatment on the workroom floor, not being to be able to survive on 8 hours of work. And the tool that we're given is this grievance process. And then, of course, our contract negotiations. And if you look at the condition that we're in right now, they're clearly not working. And the grievance process, this whole idea of mandatory overtime, can you, I know I didn't put this in the prep sheet. Could you talk a little bit off the top of your head about the history of like the 8-hour day and mandatory overtime and like, okay.
Well, people died for the 8-hour day. I'll start
Yeah, like
there,
the Haymarket
right?
riots. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so like we have the 8-hour day. It's in our contract. We're supposed to have the right to an 8-hour day. There's supposed to be all these lists, and all of that should get us to where if you wanted an 8-hour day, you would get the 8-hour day.
Right. And only the people who want overtime get it.
Yeah, but we have to recognize that even if the grievance process is followed correctly, when that carrier is paid out, that's just a fee for business.
That's
right?
exactly right. Yep.
It's, oh, I got time and a half plus an extra half. I got time and a half plus an extra time, right? So, or like double time and a half, right?
Yeah.
You just start getting to it's just a cost. And I always say management, the hand that pays the grievance is not the hand that pays the paychecks.
Yes.
Right? And never the two shall meet, right? But like, I guess where I'm like, we fill these out every fucking week.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you know the process isn't working, because we're still getting mandatory overtime. And it would be one thing if, okay, we had this crazy situation, we're super short staffed, the mail has to go out. That's why Article 8 exists, is to provide that you can do that sometimes under certain circumstances. But when we win these grievances is when management had people who wanted the overtime available and didn't give them that overtime, instead forced people who didn't want it to take it. And it's just again and again. Yep.
I've had a year. I was a steward for like a year and a half at another station. And for a full year, I had managers who just basically told me, like, I do not care.
Yeah.
I do not care. It's not my problem. I just get the mail out. That's what they told me. I just want to get the mail out.
Right.
I what I'll also say is like they make the grievance, right? They violate the contract. We write the grievance, and by the time it gets to B, do we know how many Bs are out there right now? I heard
Oh,
the number is
40,000?
40,000.
Yeah.
40,000 bees are up there.
Right.
And we're looking at 300 new ones a day is what I heard. Or 300 new ones a week.
Yeah, I mean,
That is
it sounds plausible. Yeah.
it's and that's nationwide, of course. That's not just my region, but it's management clearly has found a way to not have to deal with it. They just don't activate new bees.
Right.
They continue to keep this process going. And of course, this is our joint process. This is the process that management wants to go through because, of course, you comply and then grieve later.
Right.
Management got what they wanted out of you 8
Right.
months ago.
Yeah, the you
And then
comply.
a year later, your manager's already moved to the next station
Right.
and they took your time. You didn't get to go to your kids like soccer practice, and you get what, $30 in your paycheck, $100 in your paycheck.
Right. But you can never
Does
really
that-
be made whole in that
No.
way for the way you were violated. And so, again, to keep going back to this point, that's what the union is supposed to be there for, is to make sure you don't get violated. And that's not what's happening. So let's talk a little bit about other ways that union members in solidarity can avoid being violated. Some of the things like outside of the grievance system, which is broken, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want to give, action points here. What are some things that carriers can do outside of the grievance process to try to stop being violated?
Yeah. So if we go back to those, right, the master's tools, right?
Right.
If we understand that the grievance process, even if it can get small wins, is one of the master's tools, what are our tools, right? And I think the best way to imagine them are if the grievance process is done with the steward and management, what is done between the rank and file carriers against management? When we all come together,
Right.
those are going to be our tools,
Okay.
not when we stand alone, right? When we come together, because
That's a great
management
point.
is always going to be one against all of us.
Right.
How do we handle that, right? One of them I've been thinking about a lot is marching on the boss.
Okay, you're going to have to explain a little bit what I know you and I talked about it, but for the listener, explain what that is.
So marching on the boss is when you get your coworkers, you write a little petition or something, and you walk into your boss's office all together and you say,
Wow.
we do not want you treating us this way. You yelled at my coworker on the dock. We all are here to say, don't do that. And you just show
That's
them that
powerful.
you are in solidarity together. And, this is a practice that none of the things I'm going to tell you are new or that I created.
No,
These
I
are
know,
all
but
things-
that's why we lose sight of that, or we're not educated in basic union activism, and that's why I love having you on the show.
Yeah, I mean, God, we just did rap, and I it's really frustrating sometimes when I'm like,
When you say we just did rap, you mean there was the national rap session in Ohio? Is that what
oh
you're
no,
referring to?
Region 2's rap
Oh, okay.
happened
Gotcha.
a while ago.
Okay.
And I don't think there was any class about like how to do these tactics to,
Right.
we spend a lot of time and a lot of money educating about the grievance process,
Right.
and we never take the time to teach people about these things. And the reality is the only way I've learned these things is through talking to other unions
Yeah,
and
right.
taking courses outside of our union stuff. Another one is like, of course, like working to rule. We had doing what the contract
So
says.
that's my favorite one. And let's hold off on that for a sec because I want to talk a little bit more about March on the Boss. So this would be, to use your example, let's say the boss was mean to a carrier, yelled at the carrier, you're terrible at your job. I want you to quit, whatever. And obviously we're going to file maybe a joint statement grievance on that. But this collective action, like in your mind, walk a carrier through that. Let's say the carrier is not a steward. Let's just say, it's the next door neighbor of that carrier. They're upset about it. how do they turn that feeling where maybe everybody who heard it, is obviously bothered by it? How do they turn that feeling into a march on the boss?
So we're talking about, okay, how do you turn apathetic carriers into carriers who want to get involved, right?
Right. Who are
Or
willing to take this step. Yeah.
we're willing to take that step, right? So one of the big things, and these are all coming from Secrets of a Successful Organizer, which is
Right.
an amazing book everyone should read. You have to understand that there are things that are, quote, hotter actions than other actions. That there are actions that are more intense, that your members are going to find more risky, right? So you're going to want to build to marching on the boss. You
Okay.
can't just straight up be like, tomorrow we're all going to march on the boss.
Bring your
Because you're
pitchforks.
gonna, yeah, with your pitchfork, like you're gonna find yourself out there by yourself,
Okay.
right? You are building to these things. You're gonna start at, yeah, we filed the grievance, and the supervisor got told to cease and desist yelling,
Right.
and I got nothing else from step B. Or
Right.
he took a course and he's still being the same guy.
Right.
I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I mean, like, I had a carrier who this is not my carrier, this is a carrier in my installation who he had cancer.
Okay.
Management was harassing him to come in, right? To be like, we are going to interview you because you've been gone so long.
Wow.
Well, they filed the grievance to stop harassing him and went up to B. It's come down for more information. Well, the guy has now passed. He's
Oh
dead
my
now.
God.
He can never be made whole, right?
Right.
So how do we solve that right here, right? You get your
Right. To
carriers around
stop
you.
being violated. Yeah.
Yeah. And you say, we need to come together and we need to say, like, stop this. You've already talked to them. You filed that grievance. You start building this case for the rest of your staff, and you start having these conversations with your coworkers.
Okay.
How are we going to stop this?
Right.
Let them also come to this situation where it's like, what if we all just went in together?
Yeah.
You're going to have to do a campaign, right? An escalation of tactics. If management won't listen when you all come in together, they still can't hold their tongue. They still want to be angry and aggressive. What if you went to the media? What if you,
Right.
have a rally outside your post office? What if you start building? What if we had a button campaign? What if every time, and these get a little
Yeah,
goofy, but like, if every time management started getting aggressive, everyone pulled out a whistle and just
Yes,
whistled
the
until they
whistle.
stopped talking.
Exactly. Blow the whistle on management mistreatment.
Yeah.
And people blow that whistle and it shines a light on it.
Yeah,
Right.
it could do. There's a lot of different things, like working to rule, of course.
So I want to talk more about work to rule, but right now I think this follows really naturally into break room rallies. So let's talk about that, getting people fired up.
Yeah, so I actually did one of these in my station. This was at my last station, so maybe a year ago.
All right.
Basically, we had a new manager. He was trying to lay down the rules. He was like the third in a line of new managers. But he was like, you can't leave the mail in the front of the truck. We need
Okay.
you to put the mail in the back of the truck, and we want you to work out of the back of the truck. You and I both know that's extremely dangerous.
Oh,
That
yeah.
you work
Like
out of the-
standing in the back of the truck. Yeah. Carriers lose their legs that way.
Carriers lose their legs. And I was trying to say that in the stand-up, or try to be like, hey, we don't want to do that
Right.
because it's unsafe. And he told me not to say anything.
Okay.
And so I told my carriers, I said, our break is in 30 minutes. Like, see me in the break room, and I'll tell you about working out of the back of the truck.
Right.
And we all booed him. Like, it got real tense because he wouldn't let me say it.
Right.
And this is our carriers' lives. This is our carriers' safety.
Yeah.
And so they did come. We all had our time in the break room. I had basically delegated some of the, I made floor captains.
Uh-huh.
So there were, because it was like 90 carriers, something like that.
Okay.
4 zips.
So yeah, you can't
So-
talk to everybody.
You can't talk to them. I'm like, you tell those carriers around you that they need to be there.
Right.
We had them there, and management got so fucking nervous. And then the next day, they let me say my piece, and I read. There's an article that was written about that just lists all the carriers who lost their legs.
Yeah, right.
Or who passed.
At a previous
I read
convention, they had them come up to the stage and you saw like all their artificial limbs and wheelchairs. Yeah.
I read that article at the next stand-up the next day.
Yeah.
And it was never brought up again,
Right.
right? We filed other grievances, we did all this stuff, but what actually stopped it is management realizing if they kept pushing this issue,
You were
things
going to
were
push
going to get
back.
worse.
Right.
We were willing to push back at Westwood. And that's how you can solve these problems without just waiting for, some B or an arbitration decision to come back down that just
Right.
says, like, you're right, they can't work out of the back of the
Right.
truck.
In the meantime, management gets their way. You keep getting violated. And so, yeah, this is a
Mhm.
way to assert your rights on the spot.
Yeah. And I had, I mean, on the other hand, like, I had a carrier. So we had a manager. This was at university. This was this year after I moved to the new station.
Okay. You don't want to
Uh,
redact the name? Hey, whatever.
I'm not gonna say her name. I
Okay,
won't say
there
her
you
name.
go. Yeah, my
But she
manager
knows who she
redacted, I'm
is.
sure.
She is a really abusive manager in Seattle. She's been everywhere. She gets moved around a lot like a priest. We'll
Right.
say that.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was getting really mad about us using tubs. She didn't want us using tubs in the morning. So if you're casing your spurs,
Yeah.
the spur's too big, I throw it in a tub.
Yeah, I do the
She didn't
exact
want
same
anybody
thing.
doing that.
In order
She
in the
freaked-
tubs, yeah.
She freaked the fuck
I
out
think
over
that's
that.
in the M41 that you're
It is
allowed
in the
to do.
M41.
Yeah, okay.
We filed a grievance. We won the grievance.
Right.
And she kept harassing carriers about it. And we were continuing to file and win
Right.
and loot.
Yep.
But eventually we were at state convention, and me and my other steward were at state
Right.
convention. And she kept harassing him while we were away. And she she got him to quit. He quit
Oh,
because he would not deal with her harassment. Right. So we
Wow.
have that failure there of like,
yeah.
we were not able to actually like organize in such a way that we could defeat this manager's, harassment
Right.
of these carriers because we were just playing the grievance game.
Right. Using master's tools.
We were using the master's tools. And so I guess I'm like, if we want to win the big prizes,
Right.
we got to start playing new games.
Yeah.
We keep losing, we keep winning the small prize, but how are we going to win the big prize? How are we going to win? I don't know. The big one, obviously, to me, is cutting down on the amount of supervisors and shifting that funding to our salaries.
Right. Yeah, this
Obviously,
came up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
This
So,
came
sorry
up.
to say-
That's all right. This came up in a recent episode I did with Adam Crosby, where we have, the post office is in these dire financial straits, and they keep increasing the amount of supervision they have. And what possible argument could the post office make to say that this is a good business model, that we need more supervision, especially when more and more of the work that a supervisor would do is done by computer? That it's data entry, that there's management systems. And I wonder if at the top levels, if Brian Renfro is even asking these kind of questions.
I would say I know he's asked certain of these questions, but I don't think he's ever thought of a solution.
Right.
And I think that's where I'm like, I would like somebody to think of a solution. However, I will say, speaking of presidents, and I know we're in the middle of a hot race or
Sure.
whatever, just if we, and I always try to say this, we cannot imagine the union in the same like mindset as like great man history.
Oh, I agree
like,
completely.
great man unionism.
Yeah,
Just
no
if
way.
we change him and everything else stays the same,
Right.
we'll be in the same spot.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree completely.
But yeah, I just I don't know. There's something there where it's just I think if we understand management's incentives,
Mm-hmm.
you get paid more to have more people under you.
Right.
The more layers there are, the more people get paid who are under you.
Oh,
the
sure.
more reason that there's a postmaster in Seattle,
Right.
and then he has two guys under him,
Right.
and then he has the managers, and then they have the supervisors.
Right.
So within one installation, that's 4 levels of management.
Yeah. Same in Vegas.
Why?
Right.
Each
Yeah,
one
it's
of
a
those
great
comes up
question.
with a new dumb rule that breaks the contract and costs the post office money.
Yeah.
And I've never gone faster a day in my life because the managers looked at me.
All right. So speaking of not going any faster, let's get to my favorite form of on the floor activism: work to rule.
Yeah.
So can you? I'll take this one, but I love having you on. Talk about what work to rule is.
Well,
or can you actually, because I'm fine with describing what it is. Can you put it in context of the bigger labor movement, like how someone outside the post office might use it, just to give a little perspective?
oh, okay. So if we were not talking about us, right?
Right. Because if you listen to Classes of Mail, every episode is work to rule. Is, hey, these are the rules. This is the way we should be doing it. So to take it out of that context for a second, go ahead.
So if we're talking about another big one, let's imagine nurses, right?
Okay. Oh,
Or-
what a
or-
great example. Or teachers.
Teachers, right?
Yeah.
Teachers are, their
Use
rules
whatever
are a little
example
bit
you
more-
want. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're a nurse. In between every patient, you're supposed to be washing your hands. You're washing your hands. In between each patient, you're supposed to be doing the write-ups. You're doing the write-ups right then. You're slowing down that process. You're doing what your contract says, and you're only doing what your contract says.
Right.
Actually, my contract says that after 8 hours, I'm done. After 8 hours, you're done.
Right.
Right? Obviously, that's in a different workplace. In our workplace, honestly, the big one, if we're always talking about how bad our vehicles are, what if on one day everyone said, "Oh, I'm filling out that vehicle repair.
Right. Right.
This is actually unsafe. I'm not doing this."
Yeah.
If everyone submitted,
Right.
for every safety violation they saw,
Yeah. Yeah. Just
if
the vehicle,
everyone submitted, yeah.
the vehicle repair tag alone is such a good example because when my truck, like I'm really fastidious about writing up my truck and making sure it's in good shape. But then if they like for our maintenance people, I drive a ProMaster. And so they'll come and take my vehicle ostensibly for an oil change and then they have it for 2 months. And
Yep.
so while it's gone, I'm in a different vehicle every day. And every single one of those vehicles I can write up for a reasonably significant problem. It's the blinker, it's the windshield wipers, it's the door, it's the seat belt, it's whatever it is. And so to your point, we'll go ahead and make your point with that.
Well, if you have no vehicles, you have no mail system,
That's
right?
exactly
So
right.
That's it, right? So if we are just like, well, this vehicle doesn't have a blinker, none of these vehicles are safe enough
They're
to
not
drive,
safe. That's right.
then we're not driving them.
Yep.
And that would be an actual response to work to rule. However, again, you need to build up to your coworkers who are willing to
Right.
actually
They've got to be
submit
willing to make
those
that
forms.
stand. Right.
And we got to recognize, we all have that dedication to this job. We have a dedication to, our customers. And that's hard to go over. I've got carriers with like 20 years in the same route. They
Right.
don't want to give up.
Yeah.
They don't want to let down their
Right.
customers, right?
Right. I have people, even on ad day, like I have people who are expecting those ads. Today was
Yeah.
ad day here in Vegas, and I try to get them out.
My route doesn't get ads, and I swear it's the best part of my route.
That is great. What do you want, a business route?
No, for some reason, this is so off topic, but
Yeah.
for some reason they stopped delivering ads at routes that end in 7.
Weird.
I don't know why they did
A/B
that.
testing, see if it's making a difference in grocery sales. I don't know. Interesting.
I doubt they can tell.
So you
but
don't
it's,
miss them. That's what you're telling me.
I don't miss them, and I try not to talk about it.
Right.
This was the dumbest
don't
idea.
jinx it.
Was
Yeah.
saying it on a podcast.
Right. Yeah, that's an oversight. You got a big backlog of ads. Just good times. All right.
Yeah.
So to kind of close things out here, we have this process where with the grievance process that we have an issue with management. So we file a grievance and then we take that issue to management. And then management will decide whether management did something wrong. And if management decides that management did something wrong, then management decides what the remedy is going to be or whether they're going to accept our remedy and do something about it. And everything except for the motive process, everything is in management's hands. If management doesn't agree that they did something wrong, then we appeal to management. And then if that manager doesn't agree that they did something wrong, then we appeal to management. And then finally, eventually, it will get to a neutral arbitrator. But when we were talking the other day, You said even that, like, because to me, that seems like the backstop. Like, well, at least when we get to this neutral person, now we have some teeth and the union can really crack skulls. But even that has its flaws. And as the last thing before we get out of here, what's the issue with arbitration? Why is that not the cure-all?
I guess when I think about arbitration, so the purpose of the grievance process is to settle problems in such a way that we can just continue business as normal, right? Arbitration is the same like process basically. It's the same.
Right.
You're not bringing your coworkers who experience the unsafe act, all of them in,
Right.
right?
To
You're not
yell at the
working with your
manager.
coworkers.
Right. Yeah.
This is the process we agreed with management because as every region like NBA will tell you, arbitration is 50-50.
Right.
Some guy in a chair tells you that suddenly, actually surveillance is okay.
Right.
Actually, it's okay that they surveil you. Well, oops. We went to arbitration and we lost.
Yeah.
Well, why is it that when we lose, we lost?
Right. And then that's
Suddenly
it.
we lost a right, we lost a part of the contract. Well, how do we fight for it back? Right? Why is it that, and when we think about contracts, right? The reason that they want us in arbitration is because we can lose arbitration instead of fighting a strike or anything else, right?
It's such a good point because in arbitration, generally we're just getting the enforcement of the contract we already have.
Yeah. That's
such a great point. Right.
The
best
you
case
can
scenario,
get
right.
Is they just follow the contract and then the other 50% of the time they give you something that's worse than your contract. Sometimes they'll give you like a little benefit, a little
right.
Actually now the it's a $300 settlement.
Right.
For when they don't give you, it's whatever, but it's never really that much better.
No, and those are exceptional. Those kind of decisions. Right.
Those are exceptional decisions. I mean, obviously, with discipline, the grievance process is the best way to keep our carriers employed. Obviously, I think it's important to engage in the grievance process.
Right.
But if we're not using any other tools, like, to actually like facilitate change, we're going to be in the same spot. I think that's where I'm just like, I keep coming back to, it's just like, okay, things are only getting worse in our union, in my opinion. And
with 40,000 backlog grievances, it's hard to argue with you.
We keep just doing the same thing. So how are we going to change it? And the answer is like, we need to learn how to organize. How do we learn how to organize? Well, we should talk to our other unions in the AFL-CIO. And of course, please, read labor notes, read Secrets of a Successful Organizer, like, go to your local troublemaker school, get out to the Chicago troublemaker school. There's a lot of things you can learn and a lot of places to learn it, but you're not going to always learn it from the teachings at RAP, state.
No, as you said, that's not what they're focused on.
That's not what they're focused on.
Right.
And I think that I say it all the time. We rob ourselves, right?
Right.
And also, we're gonna need to also start thinking about things that are outside of the labor movement. I don't know. This is a reading that came, and I've been thinking about it a lot today. But it's something that came out of like a book that Audre Lorde wrote, right? Like
the same lady who inspired this quote. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned something. There was a book called On the Line.
Okay.
And it was by the person who now runs the Starbucks campaign.
Oh, cool.
And it was her memoir. And I read that, and it had the best fucking concept I ever heard, which was good boss, bad boss, sad boss.
Okay.
The best way to think about your boss ever is good boss, bad boss, sad boss. They really only have 3 things they can do. They can punish you, that's bad boss. They can praise you, that's good boss. Or they can tell you, oh my God, I need you to do your job because my boss is yelling at me, and they cry these crocodile tears.
Yes.
And that's sad boss.
Oh my God. Yes.
And once you realize once I heard that, I went,
that's
you're right.
Awesome.
There's only 3 things they can do.
Right.
How do I react to these 3 things? How do I inoculate my carriers when they say, I'm going home because I hit 12 hours,
Right.
how do you inoculate them to accept those
Yeah.
things and move past them?
It's so powerful to put a label on it like that. Because, yeah, I can't tell you how many times CCAs at my station have been manipulated at the end of their tour by sad boss. I really need your help today. Yeah, you always need my help.
You always need my help. And also, like, they're not going to die.
Right.
They're not going to die.
Yeah.
You've seen them yell at somebody else, probably. So if they get yelled at, they just pass it on to you.
Right. And nothing
know, like-
comes of it. And that's what I try to tell the CCAs is like, dude, they're saying this stuff, but it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't carry this weight. They're saying it to manipulate you because they are, as I now know, sad boss.
Sad boss.
That's a great place to leave it. See, it is always a pleasure to have you on. You bring the knowledge, you bring the energy. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Totally. Thank you so much. And also, I just want to shout out Susan Mulholland. We love you, Susan. Thank you so much.
Right on.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you all next time.